Commander Sarah Chun stood at the wide window of Harmony Point Station and watched 3 alien ships dock at the same time. The sight still amazed her even after 5 years of working here. 20 years ago, humans had no idea that other smart life existed in the galaxy. Now she worked side by side with beings from 12 different worlds every single day. The largest ship belonged to the Zephyrians. These tall, blue-skinned aliens had been exploring space for over 3,000 years. Their ship looked like a crystal tower that somehow flew through space faster than light. Sarah had learned their language and found them to be wise but sometimes cold. They often spoke about things that happened long before humans even discovered fire. The second ship was smaller and darker. It came from the Vorthan Empire. The Vorthans looked almost like humans, except their skin was gray and they had no hair anywhere on their bodies. They were excellent at making machines and computers. Sarah respected their skills, but never felt completely comfortable around them. They always seemed to be thinking about something they would not share. The third ship was painted in bright colors and made soft musical sounds as it moved. This belonged to the Melodians, a species that experienced the world mostly through sound and vibration. Working with them had taught Sarah that intelligence came in many different forms. The Melodians could solve math problems by humming and could detect lies just by listening to someone's voice. Sarah turned away from the window and walked to the main laboratory. Today was important. After 2 years of working together, the research team was finally ready to test their new faster-than-light communication device. If it worked, people could talk to each other instantly across the entire galaxy instead of waiting months or years for messages to travel between star systems. Dr. James Morrison, Sarah's closest human friend on the station, was already in the lab checking the equipment. He was a small man with messy brown hair who forgot to eat when he got excited about his work. The alien scientists respected him because he could think of solutions that none of them had ever considered. "Everything looks good," James said without looking up from his computer screen. "The Zephyrian power crystals are stable, the Vorthan quantum processors are running perfectly, and the Melodian harmonic resonators are singing in perfect tune." Sarah smiled. The device they had built used technology from 4 different species, including humans. It had taken months of careful work to make all the different systems work together. Each species had contributed something special. The Zephyrians provided the power source, the Vorthans built the quantum computers, the Melodians created the harmonic systems, and humans had figured out how to make it all work as one machine. "Where is everyone else?" Sarah asked. "Kefver is in the computer room making final adjustments," James replied. "Zephyrian perfectionist, you know how they are. Won't let us start until every number is exactly right." Kefver was their Zephyrian team leader. He stood almost 8 feet tall, and his blue skin sometimes glowed faintly when he was thinking hard. He had lived for over 200 years and had more experience with space technology than any human alive. Sarah had learned a lot from him, but sometimes his patience with human enthusiasm ran thin. "Symphony and chorus are in the testing chamber," James continued. "They're making sure the harmonic frequencies won't interfere with the station's other systems." The 2 Melodians were impossible to tell apart by looking at them, but their voices were completely different. Symphony spoke in high musical tones, while chorus had a deep, rumbling voice. They had chosen these names when they first met humans, because their real names sounded like complex songs that humans could not pronounce. "And Vexthal?" Sarah asked. "Right here," came a flat voice from behind her. Sarah turned to see the Vorthan scientist entering the lab. Vexthal was shorter than most of his species, with pale gray skin and large dark eyes. He moved quietly and always seemed to appear without warning. Like all Vorthans, he spoke in a monotone voice that never showed emotion. "All systems are functioning within acceptable parameters," Vexthal reported. "We may proceed with the test." Over the next hour, the team gathered in the main laboratory. Sarah looked around at her colleagues and felt proud of what they had accomplished. 20 years ago, humans had been alone in the universe. Now they were part of something much bigger. The Galactic Confederation had welcomed humanity as the newest member species. Humans had been given territories to colonize and had established settlements on 47 different worlds. More importantly, humans had found their place in galactic society by being the species that could make different technologies work together. While older species had become set in their ways of doing things, humans brought fresh ideas and creative solutions. They were known throughout the galaxy as the problem solvers, the ones who could find new ways to use old technologies. "Beginning test sequence," Kethver announced in his deep, formal voice. The machine hummed to life. Lights flashed in patterns across its surface while the melodian harmonic resonators filled the room with a sound like singing crystal. Sarah watched the displays show that the device was successfully opening a communication channel to a receiver on Earth, 26,000 light-years away. "Signal established," James reported with excitement in his voice. "We're getting a clear connection to the Mars research station." For the next several minutes, they exchanged messages with scientists back in human space. The communication was instant, something that should have been impossible according to the old laws of physics. But by combining the knowledge of 4 different species, they had made the impossible happen. "Test successful," Kethver declared. "This technology will revolutionize galactic communication." Sarah felt a surge of pride and hope. This was what cooperation between species could achieve. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest or force, but through friendship and shared knowledge. The future seemed bright and full of endless possibilities. She had no way of knowing that some of her alien colleagues were already planning humanity's destruction. 3 weeks after the successful communication test, Sarah Chun received an urgent message from Earth. All human representatives were ordered to attend an emergency diplomatic meeting on Kepler Station. The message said there had been a dangerous discovery about human biology that needed immediate discussion with the Galactic Confederation leadership. Sarah felt confused and worried as she packed her belongings. She had never heard of any problems with human biology before. Humans had been living and working alongside aliens for 20 years without any issues. Medical scans were routine, and human doctors worked closely with alien scientists on health matters. The journey to Kepler Station took 2 days. Sarah traveled with James Morrison and 12 other human scientists from Harmony Point. The mood on their ship was tense. Everyone had questions, but nobody had answers. The official message from Earth had been short and gave no details about what kind of biological problem had been discovered. Kepler Station was huge. Built in the empty space between star systems where representatives from different species could meet on neutral ground. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space, with docking ports for ships from all 12 member species of the Confederation. When Sarah's ship docked, she noticed something strange. There were far more alien security guards than usual. Tall Zephyrian soldiers stood at every entrance, their blue skin darker than normal, which Sarah had learned meant they were angry or stressed. Vorthan military officers watched everything, with their cold, emotionless faces. Even the normally peaceful Melodians had guards present, though they tried to make their weapons look less threatening by painting them in bright colors. Sarah and the other humans were escorted to a large conference room in the center of the station. The room was filled with representatives from all the Confederation species, but Sarah quickly realized that all the humans were being seated together in one section. Separated from everyone else. At the front of the room stood High Council leader Zethkaros, the oldest and most respected Zephyrian in the galaxy. His blue skin had the silver markings that showed his age and wisdom. Next to him stood Supreme Commander Vex Malin of the Vorthan Empire, a tall figure in dark military clothing. Fellow beings of the Confederation, Zethkaros began in his deep, ancient voice. "We have called this meeting to address a serious threat to galactic security." Sarah felt her heart start beating faster. She looked around and saw that the human representatives looked as confused as she felt. "Our scientists have discovered that human genetic material contains dangerous elements that could spread to other species," Zethkaros continued. "This biological contamination could destroy life as we know it throughout the galaxy." Dr. Elizabeth Park, the lead human medical officer, stood up from her seat. "That's impossible," she said loudly. "Our species have been living and working together for 20 years. If there was any biological danger, we would have seen signs of it by now." Supreme Commander Vex Malin stepped forward. "The contamination is not immediate," he said in his flat, emotionless voice. "It works slowly, changing the genetic structure of other species over time. By the time symptoms appear, the damage cannot be stopped." Sarah felt something cold growing in her stomach. The way the aliens were looking at the humans had changed. The friendly expressions she was used to seeing were gone, replaced by fear and disgust. "What are you suggesting we do about this?" asked Ambassador Chen Wei, Earth's chief representative to the Confederation. "Immediate quarantine protocols must be implemented," Zethkaros announced. "All human colonies and settlements must be isolated until we can find a way to neutralize this threat." Sarah saw Ambassador Chun's face turn pale. "You're talking about imprisoning our entire species, based on a theory that we've never heard before. We demand to see the scientific evidence." "The evidence is classified for security reasons," Supreme Commander Vex Malin replied. "The decision has already been made by the Council. Quarantine begins immediately." At that moment, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and automated voices began announcing in multiple languages that emergency protocols were in effect. Sarah felt James grab her arm. "Something's wrong," he whispered. "This doesn't feel like a quarantine. This feels like a trap." Through the large windows of the conference room, Sarah could see explosions of light in the distance. She realized with horror that those lights were coming from the direction of human space. Ships were being destroyed. "You're attacking our colonies," Ambassador Chun said, his voice filled with shock and anger. "We are implementing necessary containment measures," Zethkaros replied without emotion. "Resistance will only make the process more difficult." Sarah watched as Vorthan soldiers began surrounding the human section of the conference room. The soldiers carried weapons that hummed with energy. Other alien representatives sat in their seats watching, some looking uncomfortable, but none speaking up to defend the humans. "This is genocide," Dr. Park shouted. "You're using a fake disease as an excuse to destroy our people. Your species has become too unpredictable," Supreme Commander Vex Malin said, finally showing some emotion in his voice. "Your rapid advancement and chaotic thinking patterns threaten the stability of galactic civilization. The quarantine story will help other species accept what must be done." Sarah felt her world crashing down around her. Everything she had believed about galactic friendship and cooperation had been a lie. The aliens had been planning this betrayal. While working alongside humans, learning from them, and pretending to be their friends, the Zephyrian soldiers began moving toward the humans. Their weapons were raised and ready to fire. Sarah could see in their ancient eyes that they felt no guilt about what they were doing. To them, humans were just a problem that needed to be solved. "Run," James whispered to her, but there was nowhere to go. They were trapped on a space station, surrounded by enemies who had spent months planning their destruction. Sarah realized that this was not just an attack on human colonies. This was the end of humanity's place in the galaxy. The betrayal was complete, and it had been planned from the very beginning. 5 years had passed since the betrayal at Kepler Station. Sarah Chun sat in the dark cargo hold of a stolen Vorthan transport ship, watching the stars move past through a small window. Her face bore scars from the explosion that had killed James Morrison and 30 other humans during their escape from the station. The cheerful, hopeful woman who had once believed in galactic friendship was gone, replaced by someone harder and colder. The ship was heading toward the outer reach, a region of space filled with dead planets and abandoned mining stations that the Confederation had forgotten about. This was where the survivors lived now, hiding in places too worthless for the aliens to bother searching. Sarah had become the leader of something called the Terran Remnant. The name sounded more impressive than the reality. They were not an army or a government. They were just a few thousand humans scattered across the galaxy, trying to stay alive while the Confederation hunted them like animals. The official story told to the galaxy was that humans had been peacefully relocated to special colonies for everyone's safety. The truth was much darker. Most of the 47 human worlds had been destroyed completely. Billions of people had died in the first week of attacks. The survivors had been captured and sent to work as slaves in alien mining operations or medical research facilities. But some humans had escaped. Ship crews who had been in deep space during the attacks, scientists working on remote research stations, colonists who had managed to steal ships and flee before the alien fleets arrived. These survivors had found each other slowly over the years, building a secret network of safe houses and hidden bases. Sarah's second-in-command was Maria Santos, a former military engineer who had lost her entire family on the colony world of New Barcelona. Maria was good at fixing alien technology and even better at turning it into weapons. She sat across from Sarah in the cargo hold, working on a Zephyrian energy weapon they had stolen from a supply convoy. "The next pickup is in 6 hours," Maria said without looking up from her work. 3 more survivors from the Kepler mining facility. One of them claims to have information about Confederation research projects. Sarah nodded. They had been rescuing humans from alien slave camps for 3 years now. Each rescue was dangerous and could expose their network, but they could not leave people behind. Every human life was precious now that so few remained. The most important rescue had happened 2 months ago. Dr. Marcus Webb had been captured during the first attacks and forced to work in a Vorthan research facility. Webb was humanity's best expert on artificial intelligence and computer systems. The aliens had kept him alive because they wanted to understand how human technology worked so they could copy it for themselves. Getting Webb out had cost them 12 good people and their best hidden base, but it had been worth it. Webb had brought information that changed everything. The Confederation had been stealing human innovations for years, even before the betrayal. Every piece of technology that humans had shared with their alien friends was now being mass-produced and sold throughout the galaxy. Worse, the aliens were using human creativity to solve problems their own scientists could not handle. They would give human prisoners incomplete information about a technical challenge, then watch how the humans approach the problem. The aliens learned from human thinking patterns and used those insights to advance their own technology. But Webb had also brought hope. During his time in the research facility, he had been secretly working on something the aliens did not know about. He had been building an artificial intelligence program that could infiltrate and control alien computer systems. The program was hidden inside routine maintenance software and could spread from ship to ship without being detected. Sarah opened her personal tablet and looked at the network map that Webb had helped them create. Red dots showed Confederation military bases and government centers. Blue dots were human survivors and safe houses. Green lines connected systems where their AI program had already been installed. The map looked like a spider web spreading across the galaxy. For 5 years, the survivors had been placing people in key positions throughout Confederation space. They worked as janitors in government buildings, maintenance crews on military ships, and tech support for communications networks. The aliens saw them as harmless slaves, never suspecting that each one was a potential saboteur. Sarah's tablet beeped softly. A new message had arrived through their secret communication network. She read it quickly and felt her heart rate increase. The message was from Captain Lisa Park, Dr. Elizabeth Park's daughter, who was leading a team of survivors in the core worlds near Confederation headquarters. The message said that Webb's AI program was now installed in over 60% of all Confederation computer systems. It was hidden so well that alien security experts had no idea it existed. The program was waiting for activation, ready to take control of everything from military defense networks to banking systems to planetary life support. Sarah looked up at Maria, who had stopped working and was watching her with interest. "Is it time?" Maria asked. Sarah thought about James Morrison and the billions of other humans who had died because they trusted the wrong people. She thought about the children growing up as slaves in alien mines and the researchers being forced to solve problems for their captors. She thought about how the aliens had spent 20 years pretending to be friends while planning humanity's destruction. "Send the message to all cell leaders," Sarah said quietly. "Operation Prometheus begins in 72 hours. Maria smiled for the first time in months. It was not a pleasant smile. Sarah returned to looking at the star map on her tablet. Soon, the Confederation would learn what happened when you betrayed a species that specialized in making different systems work together. They had taught humans to be creative problem solvers. Now humanity would use that creativity to solve the problem of alien betrayal. The galaxy was about to discover that humans were very good at learning from their mistakes, and they never made the same mistake twice. Sarah Chun stood in the command center of their hidden base inside a dead moon, watching dozens of screens that showed activity across the galaxy. In exactly 1 hour, Operation Prometheus would begin. 5 years of careful planning and sacrifice would either free humanity or destroy what remained of their species. Dr. Marcus Webb sat at the main computer terminal, his fingers moving quickly across the controls. The artificial intelligence program he had created was now hidden inside the computer systems of every major Confederation facility in the galaxy. For months, the program had been learning, copying itself, and preparing for this moment. "All teams, report ready," Maria Santos announced from her station. "We have people in position at 47 critical targets across 12 star systems." Sarah nodded. Their network had grown far beyond what anyone thought possible. Human survivors worked as cleaning staff in the Zephyrian High Council building. They maintained computers on Vorthan military ships. They served food in the cafeterias of Confederation research centers. The aliens had been so confident in their victory that they never imagined the broken humans around them could pose any threat. "Broadcasting final authorization codes now," Webb said. "The AI will activate in 60 seconds. Sarah thought about all the people they had lost to reach this moment. James Morrison, who died in the explosion at Kepler Station. Captain Reynolds and his crew, who sacrificed themselves to rescue human prisoners from a Vorthan labor camp. Dr. Helen Chang, who was caught placing surveillance equipment in a Zephyrian government building and executed as an example to other humans. Each death had taught them something new about their enemies. Each sacrifice had brought them closer to this day. "Activation in 10 seconds, Webb announced. Sarah watched the countdown on the main screen. When it reached 0, the galaxy changed forever. The first sign of Operation Prometheus was the sudden failure of the Confederation's main communication network. Every government building, military base, and research facility lost contact with each other at exactly the same moment. Emergency backup systems tried to activate, but they failed too. Because the eye had infected everything. On the screen showing the Zephyrian homeworld, Sarah watched as their capital city went dark. The power grid had been shut down by the same AI that was supposed to manage it. Traffic control systems failed, causing flying vehicles to crash into buildings. The planetary defense network turned its weapons toward the planet's surface instead of protecting it from attack. The Vorthan Empire's response was swift but useless. Their military commanders tried to coordinate a defense, but their ships could not communicate with each other. Worse, the AI began feeding false information to their navigation systems. Vorthan fleets found themselves lost in empty space, unable to find their way home. But the real destruction came from the economic collapse. Webb's AI had learned how the Confederation's banking and trade systems worked. Within minutes of activation, it began transferring money between accounts randomly, canceling important business contracts, and changing the ownership of major corporations. 5,000 years of carefully built economic relationships fell apart in less than an hour. Sarah watched reports flooding in from human operatives across the galaxy. The Melodian homeworld was experiencing chaos as their sound-based technology began producing painful noise instead of music. The insect-like Kitteran hive colonies were collapsing because their computer-controlled food distribution systems had been reprogrammed to send all resources to empty storage facilities. Phase 2 beginning now, Webb announced. This was the part Sarah had been looking forward to. Across the galaxy, hidden transmitters that had been placed by human operatives began broadcasting the truth about what had happened 5 years ago. The peaceful story about human quarantine was replaced by recordings of the real planning meetings where Confederation leaders discussed the best ways to commit genocide. The broadcasts included video of human colonies being destroyed, audio recordings of alien commanders laughing about human deaths, and documents showing how the biological contamination story had been completely fabricated. For the first time, ordinary citizens throughout the galaxy learned that their governments had murdered billions of innocent people for no reason other than fear and jealousy. The reaction was immediate and violent. On the Zephyrian homeworld, angry crowds began attacking government buildings. Young Zephyrians who had never heard the truth about the human genocide turned against their elders. The ancient unity of their species cracked under the weight of their leaders' lies. The Vorthan Empire faced a different kind of chaos. Their rigid military structure depended on absolute loyalty to the chain of command. When lower-ranking officers learned that their commanders had lied to them about the war against humanity, many units began fighting each other instead of following orders. But the greatest success came from an unexpected source. 3 Confederation species had not been part of the original planning for human genocide. The Altarians, Nexians, and Symbiont Collective had been told the same lies as everyone else. When they learned the truth, they immediately declared the Confederation government to be illegal and began attacking the species that had deceived them. The galaxy is tearing itself apart, Maria reported with satisfaction. Confederation space has become a war zone. Every species is fighting every other species. Sarah nodded, but she felt no joy in watching the destruction. This was justice, not celebration. The aliens had chosen to destroy humanity's trust in galactic civilization. Now they would learn what a galaxy without trust looked like. The final phase of Operation Prometheus was the simplest and most devastating. Human operatives who had spent years learning alien technology began sabotaging critical systems that could not be repaired quickly. They destroyed the machines that made faster-than-light travel possible. They corrupted the databases that stored thousands of years of scientific knowledge. They planted bombs in the factories that produced the advanced technology that kept galactic civilization running. Within 6 hours of the operation's beginning, the Galactic Confederation had ceased to exist as a functioning government. What remained were 12 terrified species trapped on their homeworlds, watching their technology fail and their societies collapse. Sarah looked at the final report on her screen. Operation Prometheus had succeeded beyond their wildest hopes. The galaxy that had betrayed humanity was burning, and from its ashes, something new would be born. 1 year after Operation Prometheus, Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Retribution, looking down at the blue-green world of Zephyr Prime, the ancient homeworld of the species that had led. Humanity's betrayal was now under human control, its billions of inhabitants dependent on human ships for food, medicine, and basic supplies. The galaxy had changed completely. Where once there had been a unified confederation spanning thousands of worlds, now there were only isolated planets struggling to survive without the technology and trade networks that had supported them for millennia. The great star lanes that had connected civilizations were empty, except for human patrol ships. Sarah had spent the last year traveling from world to world, meeting with the leaders of species that had once considered humans to be their inferiors. Now these same aliens came to her begging for permission to repair their broken ships, or asking for help to restart their failing power systems. The title they used when speaking to her was Terran Arbiter, though Sarah had never chosen that name for herself. It had started when desperate alien leaders began asking her to settle disputes between their own people. When governments collapsed and old alliances crumbled, someone had to make decisions about who controlled what resources and which species were allowed to rebuild their technology. That someone had become humanity. Dr. Marcus Webb's artificial intelligence had done its work too well. The virus had not only destroyed the Confederation's computer systems, but had also corrupted most of the technical knowledge needed to rebuild them. Alien scientists who had relied on automated systems for thousands of years found themselves unable to perform basic engineering tasks without computer assistance. Only humans possess the creativity and problem-solving skills needed to reverse the damage. But humanity was no longer in the business of helping other species for free. "Ma'am, we're receiving another transmission from the Vorthan delegation," reported Lieutenant Collins, Sarah's communications officer. Collins was one of the children who had grown up during the underground years, raised on stories of betrayal, and taught never to trust alien promises. "Put them through," Sarah said. The face that appeared on the main screen belonged to former Supreme Commander Vex Milan, same Vorthan who had announced humanity's quarantine at Kepler Station 6 years ago. His gray skin looked older now, marked with stress lines that had not been there before. The proud military uniform was gone, replaced by simple civilian clothes. "Terran Arbiter," Vex Malin said, his voice no longer emotionless but filled with obvious desperation. "My people are dying. Our medical facilities have been offline for 8 months. We need the activation codes for our hospital computers." Sarah studied his face for a long moment before responding. Behind Vex Malin, she could see other Vorthan officials waiting nervously. These were the same beings who had planned humanity's destruction while pretending to be friends and allies. "Your species had 20 years to learn how to operate medical equipment without depending entirely on automated systems," Sarah said calmly. "You chose instead to focus on military technology and weapons of war. That was your decision." "Please," Vex Malin said, and Sarah could hear something she had never expected to hear from a Vorthan. He was begging, "We can offer you anything. Technology, resources, knowledge from our archives. Just help us save our people." Sarah leaned back in her command chair. Through the view screen, she could see human ships patrolling the space around Zephyr Prime. Each ship carried weapons that had been built using technology stolen from all 12 Confederation species. Humanity had learned well from their former oppressors. "Your archives contain nothing we do not already possess," Sarah replied. "Your technology is based on designs that humans created and shared with you during the years when we believed in galactic friendship. Your resources are irrelevant because we now control all the major trade routes." She paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "But there is something you can offer us." Hope appeared in Vex Malin's eyes. "Name it. Anything." "An explanation," Sarah said. "Tell me why your species decided that genocide was preferable to coexistence. Help me understand how beings who called themselves civilized, could plan the murder of billions of innocent people. Vexmalin's face fell. He had obviously expected her to demand resources or territory, not a moral accounting of his people's actions. We were afraid, he said quietly. Humans advanced too quickly. Your thinking patterns were chaotic and unpredictable. We believed that eventually you would become a threat to galactic stability. So you decided to eliminate us before we could prove you wrong, Sarah said. Yes, Sarah nodded slowly. This was the same explanation she had heard from every species that had participated in the betrayal. Fear of human unpredictability, concern about galactic stability, worry that humans would eventually become too powerful to control. None of them seemed to understand that their fears had created exactly the outcome they had tried to prevent. Your medical facilities will remain offline, Sarah announced. Your people will learn to practice medicine without computer assistance, or they will not practice it at all. Vexmalin's face showed shock and despair. You're condemning millions of innocent Vorthans to death. I am teaching your species the same lesson you taught mine, Sarah replied. The difference is that we are giving you a chance to adapt and survive. You gave us no such opportunity. She signaled for the transmission to be ended, then turned to address her bridge crew. Set course for the Melodian homeworld, she ordered. Their planetary council has requested a meeting about restarting their agricultural systems. As the Retribution moved away from Zephyr Prime, Sarah looked out at the galaxy that humanity now controlled. It was a darker, lonelier place than the one she had known during her years at Harmony Point. The dreams of peaceful cooperation and shared knowledge were gone, replaced by the cold reality of power and survival. But it was also a galaxy where no species would ever again be able to plan humanity's destruction. The Terran remnant had grown from a few thousand survivors into the dominant force in galactic civilization. Human ships patrolled every major star system. Human administrators decided which worlds were allowed to trade with each other. Human scientists controlled access to the technology needed for interstellar travel. The aliens had wanted galactic stability. Now they had it, enforced by the species they had tried to eliminate. Sarah had once believed that the galaxy was big enough for all species to coexist as equals. That naive woman was gone, killed along with billions of other humans during the Confederation's betrayal. In her place stood the Terran Arbiter, sole judge of which species deserved to reach for the stars. The galaxy had learned that betraying humanity meant more than war. It meant the complete rebuilding of civilization. With humans as the final authority on who got to participate, some lessons, Sarah reflected, could only be taught once.